This is REL 105, Comparative Religion. In this session, we'll discuss religions of place and native religions of North America. Let's begin. So far, we've looked at major religions. We've said that some classify these religions based on their region of origin. So religions such as Hinduism and Buddhism are called Eastern religions, while religions of the book like Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are said to be Western religions. There are lots of religions that are smaller. They occur all over the planet. They tend to be associated with smaller regions and even relatively small areas. Because of this, some call these religions of place. Here's an important note. When people in the Western world started studying and comparing religions, hence our course name, Comparative Religion, they tended to look at some areas of the world as less sophisticated than their own. Some areas had less education and lacked written traditions. So, students of comparative religion might at one time have called these religions primitive religion. We now consider this to be ethnocentric and just unfair. So today, there is a preference for titles like the one we're using, religions of place. Because they're numerous and because they are associated with lots of different places, they have a lot of differences. On the other hand, it's surprising how many things these religions of place have in common. Because of that, for purposes of an introductory course like this one, we'll look at just one set of these religions, the religions of the indigenous peoples of North America. Let's start by looking at some of the things that these religions have in common. As we said, there is massive variance among local religions, but these appear to be common. First, they link humans to the land where their sacred traditions have developed. Because followers see this link, they show reverence for the land. The land is part of the natural world, so followers seek power in nature. Now this is very important. Traditions are passed orally. This is because, as we said previously, many of these cultures lack a written language. The question is often raised, how dependable is this process? Well, it's surprisingly dependable. Many of us as children have played the game Whisper Down the Lane. Participants sit in a circle or a line. Someone makes up a sentence, and then each person has to whisper the sentence to the next person in line. They only get one try. It's not unusual for the sentence to become very distorted. That's the purpose of the game, to come up with funny variations. So you might think that oral traditions would be highly inaccurate. But let's change the rules. Let's say that instead of someone making up a sentence and then saying the sentence to just one person, they say the sentence to everyone in the room at the same time. The person who made up the sentence then asks someone to repeat it. If the person who repeats the sentence gets it wrong, the whole room knows it, since they all heard it. So because traditions are passed along by groups and not by individuals, there is a high level of accuracy. The process isn't necessarily perfect, but variations and mistakes are minimized. Let's move on. There's a common concept in these religions that today is called sacred mystery. It's a life force shared by all things in the world. The American Plains Indians also call this Wakan Tanka. Now I say today because here again, the way this is interpreted is influenced by the time period people live in. When early Europeans first started interacting with the indigenous Americans, the Europeans had a religious concept based on a Judeo-Christian model which involved one creator God. So, when they first started discussing religion, the Europeans thought they heard something that could be interpreted as Great Spirit. However, as they listened more, they realized that these religions weren't strictly monotheistic, and beings in the eternal weren't necessarily creators. So the better name was Sacred Mystery. Let's look at an illustration of the relationship between humans and the eternal. Western religions state that there is a creator God, and that there is a gap between humans and this creator caused by our sin. The gap between God and humans is like a canyon. It's so big and so deep that humans cannot possibly cross on their own. So God must reach across the gap to help humans. The Native Americans would say that there is a gap, but the gap is more like a prairie. It can be crossed, but you need the help of everything there. Everything is linked by the land. This belief system tends to be strongly animistic. Animals and objects can have a soul or a kind of soul. They can communicate in different ways if you listen correctly. The sacred mystery is described in various ways. Often this includes dualities or pairs, earth and sky, fire and water. Some see a set of twins, such as Glooskap and his evil brother. In this case, one of the pair is a trickster, a mischievous or evil player. In the story of Glooskap, a supernatural woman became pregnant with twins. While in the womb, the twins had a discussion, or maybe you would say a debate. The discussion involved the way that they would be born. One of the twins, Glooskap, was good, or at least basically good. He decided to be patient and wait for the normal birth process, even though it might be painful. That's how he was born. The evil twin, though, or the trickster, was impatient and had no concern for his mother. He fought his way out, and in the process killed his own mother. So, sometimes as humans navigate life, they are helped by good forces like Glooskap. But sometimes mischief and downright evil comes into their lives. That's the evil twin. There was a play in the 20th century that used to be popular in high schools. It was called Harvey. It's the story of an eccentric, wealthy man named Elwood P. Dowd, who one day starts telling his friends that he's met a 6-foot-tall rabbit named Harvey. No one but Elwood can see the rabbit. His family members think he's gone insane. Through the course of the play, which was made into a movie, there is some question as to whether the rabbit may in fact be a spirit trickster. The particular type of trickster comes from ancient Polish religion and is called a puka. It's a fun movie if you want to look it up sometime. Suffice it to say that tricksters pop up occasionally in other places of worldwide culture. Let's consider now a well-known symbol of North American religions, the medicine wheel. It's a circle with symbols that are thought to describe the universe. Once again, European concepts and indigenous thoughts struggled to find common ideas. The Europeans often brought medicine, a pill or liquid that alleviated disease. This appeared to be supernatural. So, supernatural and medicine became linked concepts. A medicine wheel can be relatively small. It can be painted on a shield or on a dwelling. Or, as shown on our slide, it can be huge, in this case covering acres of ground. Let's give a teaser to our class on new religions. All over the world, explorers have found structures that don't make sense when you look at them on the ground. They only make sense when you see them from high in the air. Why would ancient peoples make such structures? Could they have been designed to be seen by aircraft of some kind? Where would such aircraft come from? We'll talk about that when we get to that class. For now, let's get back to our topic. Let's talk more about the medicine wheel. In particular, let's look at images or elements that are drawn on them. Elements can represent spiritual forces or individuals. As we said, these religions tend to be animistic, so animals are important potential helpers. The elements can be facets of life. Now here's an important note. The elements are often arranged in terms of directions. Here's why this is important. Western religions tend to describe God in terms of time. If you look at the Christian Bible, for example, it starts with a time when God made the heavens and the earth. So the heavens and the earth and time had a beginning. Time is then traced through generations of humans as they face challenges and interact with God through these challenges. Finally, time will eventually end, or pass through a major transition where the creation returns to its perfect state. That's where we get the idea that things have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Local religions, on the other hand, tend to describe the eternal in terms of space, especially the directions of north, east, west, and south. So, those directions are featured on many medicine wheels. Let's move on to a concept that is very important to these religions. It's called giveaway. This is the Native American idea of the reciprocity in the universe. Everyone and everything must give and take. Remember, all things share a link with place, the land, the mountains, the water, and the sky. As we said, those things are revered. But here we run into a problem. Humans often lack balance in this area, taking much more than they give. What is the solution? Humans must learn to be better givers, cooperating with the universe around them. So you take only what you need and you make sure that you give back. Let's talk now about another important cultural concept, names. Remember, everyone is related in some way to the land, and from there the universe. An important indicator of a person's relationship to the universe, then, is their name. Names often reflect animals, things, places, weather, or actions. Special names come when a person sees something unusual or intense. Some examples include Sitting Bull, Black Elk, Red Cloud, Crazy Horse, Tecumseh, which is translated as Panther in the sky. We'll talk in just a bit about where these names can come from. For now, let's move on. As we've looked at different religions, we've mentioned that a common factor in religions is how different groups treat life change events. Let's talk about some rites of passage, or specially treated events. For women, a major event is menstruation. This is the time when a girl passes into womanhood and develops the ability to bring life into the world. As such, it's very special. It's potentially powerful. It's not unusual to see people who are sick approach a young woman who is in this state with the hopes that they can obtain healing. For men, it might be the first hunt. Prior to this time, boys are takers and receivers. Maybe they can be helpers. But now they're ready to be providers, people who will help to sustain their family and friends. So it's important. In some cultures, when a child is ready to become an adult, one important act is to grant a new name. So a person can have multiple names depending on their stage in life. Now, we need to talk about three very important concepts for religions of place. These are words, steps, and rituals. Let's discuss each of these separately. The first of these three important concepts is words. We often take words for granted. In modern cultures, words are used to describe things. In these cultures, however, words don't just describe things. They have power to create and change. The power is increased when words become part of stories. Words are further enhanced by chanting or singing. The next important concept is steps. You grow in many ways when you travel, whether a short way or long. Since everyone is linked to the land, you watch, observe, and feel as you walk along. Steps become time periods and events. One important step in life is the vision quest. This is a form of spiritual growth derived from journeying alone to seek a vision linking the self with the land and its inhabitants. So, when the time is right, a young person can choose to leave their tribe and explore their land. As you travel, you observe, reflect, consider, and meditate. One special thing to do is listen. Any animal or object may have something special to say. We said earlier that some famous names include unusual or intense events. So a wanderer might observe a horse acting in a highly active manner. Seeing this makes the observer feel a sense of power. From there he takes the name Crazy Horse. As we said, the name Tecumseh is translated Panther in the sky. As this young man looked up, he saw a striking cloud formation that spoke to him. From there, the famous name. The third important concept is rituals. Again, these are repeated actions with meaning. One important ritual for young men is the sun dance. The idea here is to increase spiritual awareness by going through a series of activities meant to cause pain. In some cases, intense pain. Participants might take the claws of a large bird and embed them into their chests. The claws are tied to a strong pole. The participant then jumps and dances in such a way as to increase the pull of the talons on their own flesh. Often the flesh rips. The scars are proof that a young man can tolerate pain. Along the way, the intense pain is thought to increase awareness of the cosmos. Let's give a quick mention to titles given to religious leaders in Native American religion. Let's note that these are translations. Again, Western cultures have tried to understand the concepts involved and have used the best words they could find. Titles include Medicine Man. Recall the connection of medicine and the supernatural. The next is Holy Man. Finally, Shaman. This is a term we've heard before when we looked at Eastern religion. It's used to describe a person who holds core religious ideas and includes various types of magic. So a shaman would incorporate incantations and spells into rituals to contact and control forces in the eternal. Some Native Americans enhance their spiritual quest with substances, including tobacco and peyote. That's a hallucinogenic drug derived from a type of cactus. Many have tried in recent years to have similar experiences with drugs like LSD. We'll talk more about this one too when we discuss new religions. Now, as an instructor of religion, I like to respect the cultural and religious beliefs of sincere people, even if I don't agree or follow those practices. When this is practiced by some Native Americans, it's part of their culture. As a personal opinion, when experimentation takes place outside of this cultural context, it's a very bad thing. Sometimes people will obtain various hallucinogenic substances like peyote and strong drugs like LSD and experiment on their own. Please don't do this. This is one reason why we hear stories of students having hallucinations and jumping out of dormitory windows and the like. Again, we'll talk more about this in the New Religions class. For now, I'll give my strongly held personal opinion that recreational drug use is to be avoided, to put it mildly. Now, most of the time in this class, we like to allow religions and cultures to present themselves in a positive light. However, sometimes we need to talk a little bit about challenges. One of those challenges for Native American religions is the presence of contradictions to noble concepts. One of those contradictions is best illustrated in an event called Head Smashed In Buffalo Jump. That's a place in Alberta, Canada, where a group of Native Americans caused a herd of buffalo to stampede off of a cliff. The name comes from an unfortunate individual who decided to watch this from the bottom. He got his, well, you understand. There are other stories of people setting a field on fire with the intent of getting a few animals, but instead destroying whole herds, and doing so in painful and totally inhumane ways. The point: Indigenous Americans weren't always perfect. This is not a good example of giveaway being practiced. In our last 2 slides, we'll look at some topics that have caused controversy and confusion. The first involves the relationship of Native American religion to Christianity. The simplest way to explain the relationship is to say that lots of people from all viewpoints interacted in numerous ways. So the simplest way to explain this is to say that it's complex. Some Native Americans loved Christianity and became Catholic or evangelical Christians. In fact, they loved European culture in general. Because of this, they adopted this culture as their own. They blended in and at points became totally assimilated. I've met numerous people who proudly state that they have a percentage of Native American in their lineage. On the other hand, there were certainly those among the native population that refused completely. Still others chose something in the middle. Because of this, you can find hybrid practices of religion occurring throughout Native American culture. For our last topic, we'll discuss a classic and tragic conflict between people of Western thought and religion versus the Native Americans, the concept of land as property. The stereotype often held today is that all Europeans came and stole land from the Native Americans. Sadly, that does describe the actions of many Europeans. There were, however, many cases where the problem wasn't a deliberate attempt at theft, but a misunderstanding of culture and religion. In Judeo-Christian religion, land is something that a person possesses. While in their possession, a person can use the land as they see fit. They can build on it. They can farm on it. They can leave it as an inheritance to their children, or they can sell it for the right price. The Native Americans didn't have this concept. To them, the land was just there. It was part of their universe. The population density of most Native American populations was very low, so everyone could pretty much live where they wanted. There were some large-scale concepts of regional territory, and sometimes there were border disputes and even wars between the Native Americans. However, within large boundaries, people just picked an open spot and claimed it. Some Europeans came with the idea that there was so much land, they could also pick a spot and claim it. In some cases, where there were residents, the Europeans offered to purchase the land. From their perspective, there was so much land, in their minds, the locals were willing to let the land go for a low price. Eventually, the land, though, got crowded, and this whole process became very confused. The Europeans, eventually calling themselves Americans, were stronger. When conflicts occurred, the natives lost out. This eventually led to Native Americans being constrained to reservations where they could have limited land. Now, I'm not saying any of this to excuse the behavior of the Europeans. This is all to say that the process was more complex than we often hear described to us today. I'm suggesting that, although in some cases force and theft were involved, in other cases there were unfortunate misunderstandings of history, religion, and culture. That was our class on religions of place. Come back for more classes as we study comparative religion.